Do you think labor unions are shooting themselves in the foot by negotiating the company into contracts that make it harder for those organizations to be agile, to, survive?
100%. When you look at the UAW contract that was just settled with General Motors and, with basically the big three, was it General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, I think they call it now. Fantastic. I mean, those contracts are fantastic. When you look at the contract that UPS settled with the Teamsters, they're fantastic contracts. But do they make fiscal sense in the long term? Because I can pay you out right now, but it's the exact same scenario that the car makers discovered when they were back in the 70s and the 80s, when they were given these fat contracts, lifetime healthcare pensions and all that great stuff to those employees. And then when the economics changed, when the economy became global, then they couldn't afford to uphold those contracts, and they stopped being as agile. They stopped being able to meet the demands of a global business base. So I think by and large, unions, that if a union is going to do something that's going to be good for the employees, that thing has to be not only what's good for them today, but what's going to be good for the organization 5 years from now. Because if it's good for the organization from a financial sense, it's going to be good for the employees in terms of having jobs.
So do you believe that the minimum wage earner in America is being exploited? I mean, there are a lot of people who are in these unions that believe that it is an exploitative system.
Do I think
is that wrong?
Being exploited by whom?
By capitalism. Are they being underpaid and overexploited?
I don't know that I would say. No, forget that. I do believe in a living wage. I do believe that America continues to get more expensive, where a six-figure salary 20 years ago is a baseline salary today, right? Given the nature of just inflation and everything else that comes with it. I think that the challenge that America has, and I'm going to take this off the worker, and I'm going to say America in terms of the system. Again, given my age, when I was 16, all I heard from my parents was get a college education, get a college education, get a college education. That mattered. And I got my college education. I went on, I got my master's degree, and I went on, I got another master's degree. I founded a business. I've been incredibly successful. But that's harder to say to the average 16-year-old today. That's harder to say to the average 21-year-old today, because the mechanism by which they could have a slice of the American pie, right? The mechanism by which they could have a life within the middle America, it costs too damn much. I mean, if I want to go on and get my college education these days, which I'm a huge proponent for education, because I don't believe that you go to college to get a job. I believe you go to college to learn how to think, right? The challenge is, how do I say to an 18-year-old who doesn't play sports, who's not intellectually gifted to the point of being able to have a full ride, who does not test particularly well on the ACT or SAT, therefore they're not going to get scholarships. How do I say to them, you know what? I know you've been living in your mom and daddy's home for 18 years, but now you're going to go on and get your 4-year degree. And you're going to go into debt for about maybe $150,000, $200,000. But make sure you major in business. Make sure you major in science. Make sure you major in something that's actually going to pay you well. But don't major in art history. Don't major in social work like I did. Don't major in philosophy. Don't major in psychology, the things you might enjoy. Because then you're going to come out and you're going to be working at Trader Joe's. But you still have this huge bill that you're going to get hit by, but within 6 months to a year after graduation, if not before that. I think the problem with America in this, when we talk about exploitation, I don't know that it's the workers who are being exploited as much as we have a system that just does not consider anybody other than the ultra rich. But in order to get to the ultra rich, I'm not speaking as an African American. I was not born into money. I am the second generation college graduate. I am second generation. My dad was first generation middle class, right? I'm the first generation upper middle class. I could go on and on about this, but I think that as a whole, America, we have to do almost a great reset, because if we're not careful, we're going to take this upcoming generation of people who deserve better than what we're leaving them with. And we're going to take this new generation of folks who could be incredible workers, who could be incredible thinkers, who could be incredible producers, creators. And we're not going to leave them with anything other than broken dreams.
So what's interesting is the CEOs that we work with, I would say by and large, get that because they've hired us to help them with their culture, right? And it's not, more often than not, it is not organizations that have a bad culture that are trying to fix it. More often than not, it's organizations that have a good culture that want to leverage culture to drive even better results because they know the power of culture. So we're not dealing with a lot of toxicity, right? We're dealing with CEOs who, quote, get it. You, in the labor relations, unionization prevention work, I would imagine maybe deal with a couple more toxic CEOs than we do. I mean, when you speak to CEOs about this, does it fall on deaf ears? Are they open to learning? What is it that you're experiencing when you have these deeper conversations with the leaders of major organizations?
Question. Yeah, I've been very blessed in my life with the rare exception of maybe 3 or 4 organizations who I'm not going to name whatsoever. I've been very fortunate to have been able to work with and counsel companies that get it. And if they didn't get it then, they get it now, right? CEOs who I've had to have some very tough conversations with about how they show up to the employees, how they show up to their managers, how they show up to their executives, and they get it. It doesn't mean that they get it instantly. It doesn't mean that they don't fight me. But I've had to tell a couple CEOs, you hired me for a reason. And if you want somebody who's going to tell you what you want to hear, there's a bunch of other consultants I can recommend to you. But if you want someone who's going to tell you what's really happening in your facilities, if you want someone who's going to tell you what your executives really think about you, that's why you hired me, so that I can make you better. So I've been very fortunate that I've had executives who take the hard criticisms and they come out fighting. But they don't come out fighting in terms of getting rid of everybody. They come out fighting in terms of, okay, that was hard to hear, but I want to change and I want to help this organization grow because I know I'm not going to be here forever, but I want to make sure that whoever takes over for me is in a better place than I was when I inherited this place.